Hi everyone, it's my first time at Roanoke. What a beautiful city you have and what wonderful citizens of the world Roanoke has. Thank you so much, I'm so honored to be here. So I'm going to share with you a story, a personal story, and it connects to the Me Too movement in many ways, and really shows why Me Too is important right now. I was molested at 9, raped in my early 20s, and attacked in a parking lot a few weeks after I turned 40. Until the third event, shame and fear prevented me from talking about what had happened earlier in my life. It wasn't until a man punched me repeatedly in the face and then stole my purse at a Target parking lot, leaving me on the ground in a bloody heap in front of my children, that I became aware that something needed to change in my life. A woman approached us. "It's okay," I told her. "We're okay." She stared at me with an intensity I'll never forget. "It's not okay, and you're not okay." I saw it. Seeing my attack through her act of witnessing it and through the eyes of my 3- and 5-year-old children made me decide to speak with others about my experiences. At first, it was in an effort to help my children cope. They wanted to talk about bad guys and violence, the blood that had poured from my face, the man who had disappeared behind the edges of the buildings, how to throw a good karate kick, if the man could climb into our windows at night. Months later, I finally gained the courage to discuss my first 2 experiences of sexual violence with friends. It took almost 2 years before I was ready to phone my brothers and parents and tell them. Now, at local schools, I read excerpts from my soon-to-be published book, The Little Girl Is Me. Thank you. It's a first-hand account of my life as a survivor of violence. The liberating feeling of acknowledging and voicing painful realities to compassionate listeners has changed how I express everything in my life. Suddenly, I have a voice. Suddenly, I matter. Thanks. We don't want to admit that violence could happen to us. When I told people about the attack with my children, the most common responses were, "You're too trusting. You need to pay more attention. Take a deep breath and move on." It's understandable that we try to put distance between us and a survivor of violence. But this has to stop if we want to empower survivors rather than disempower victims. Telling our stories is liberating when we have people willing to bear witness to them. I lost my voice after the first 2 events because there wasn't space in our society to talk about them. By not acknowledging them, I also found it difficult to acknowledge many of my own truths, including how I felt about the day-to-day. I mediated rather than expressed opinions of my own. By hiding away 2 of the most difficult events of my life, I didn't even know what my own truth actually was. Then the third event happened. I had people bearing witness, and their accounts made it clear to me that something grave had happened, and I needed to confront rather than ignore it. Ooh, it's windy. Now I'm able to make real change within my own community, bearing witness to people who have suffered violence, racism, and injustice, and advocating with them with a strong, confident voice that is completely my own. I say what I need to say now, and I no longer spend time trying to figure out what others want me to say. And I can feel my truth in everything I do. The people who listened and supported me didn't look around for reasons for the attack or for the type of person they thought might have committed it. They didn't focus on what I was wearing, how disturbing the story would be to my family and friends, or to them. Their focus wasn't on how, if they'd been me, they would have avoided it, or what I should have done. They concentrated on mirroring for me the validity of my story, hearing it as though my life depended on it, and in many ways, it did. Telling my story meant my truth was valid, that it was worth voicing. This meant all other things in my life were worth voicing too. The next time you talk with somebody who has a story to tell about violence, oppression, tragedy, illness, death, or pain, listen to her as though listening was the only thing in the world you had to do that day. Look into that person's eyes and make her feel her story is worth telling. Tell her she is brave and that you care about her. If somebody says, "Me too," believe her. They are probably the hardest 2 words she has ever had to say. We all have a story to tell, and if it involves pain, we need to tell that story. Each time we tell it, the event loses power and we gain strength. The strength to go on, the strength to be ourselves. Thank you so much.